In today's video, I step aboard the last White Star Line vessel, the baby sister of RMS Titanic, the SS Nomadic. Hello, welcome to Through Lucy's Lens, weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you'll find it interesting too. If we haven't met before, I'm Lucy, social historian and your serially nosy friend. I recently visited Belfast with my main aim to bring you a video about the Titanic experience. However, it didn't quite work out like that. It was too busy and I just wasn't feeling it, which was a shame after wanting to visit for decades. But something saved the day. And as someone who's been interested in the Titanic for most of their life, my visit to the SS Nomadic will stay with me forever. So this is the story of the SS Nomadic, a ship that survived both time, tragedy, war and neglect. And today she remains the only surviving vessel of the White Star Line, the baby sister ship of the RMS Titanic and Olympic. And it's a physical space where people like me who've dreamt about a physical representation of the Titanic. This took me closer than I've ever been before. Launched on April the 25th, 1911, from the Harland and Wolff shipyard here in Belfast, SS Nomadic was built as a tender. This is a ship designed to ferry passengers and cargo between the shore and larger ocean liners. Her primary duty was to serve the new Olympic-class ships, including the Titanic, at ports like Cherbourg in France, which lacked the infrastructure for such massive vessels. At just 231 feet long, the SS Nomadic was a miniature of the great liners, complete with first and second class lounges, elegant fittings and a capacity for up to 1,000 passengers. Alongside her smaller sister ship, the SS Traffic, she provided essential logistics support, carrying not just people but luggage, mail and supplies. On April the 10th, 1912, Nomadic performed her most famous duty. She ferried 274 passengers to the RMS Titanic that was moored offshore at Cherbourg during its maiden voyage. Among the passengers she carried that day were probably people you've heard of in the Titanic story. John Jacob Astor, the unsinkable Molly Brown, Benjamin Guggenheim and the Countess of Roths. Nomadic was the last vessel many of Titanic's passengers ever set foot on before boarding the ill-fated liner. 4 days later, of course, on April the 15th, 1912, the Titanic sank in the North Atlantic. While the Nomadic was not involved in the disaster itself, her close connections to the Titanic give it a poignant place in maritime history. After the Titanic tragedy, the Nomadic resumed her work as a tender at Cherbourg, serving liners like the RMS Olympic and the RMS Mauretania. With the outbreak of World War I in 1914, Nomadic was requisitioned by the French Navy and repurposed for military use. She was used to transport American troops, amongst others, to the front lines and between ports. At this time, she was stripped of her luxury fittings and played a part in her role in the war effort. Sometimes video highlights come when you least expect them, and the bathrooms on the SS Nomadic are still the same. Folks, we've got a crapper. We finally got a crapper. Look at that flush. Porthole. Original metalware. Unexpected. Toilet highlight of the week. You can still use these, by the way. These are the ladies. I can't attest for what the gents are like, but us ladies get a real treat on the SS Nomadic. We get to take a historical ablution. After the First World War, Nomadic returned to her original role at Cherbourg, once again serving transatlantic liners during the golden age of ocean travel. She was refitted and re-equipped and continued to serve passengers, both famous and anonymous, for decades. She assisted many vessels during this time, including the RMS Queen Mary and RMS Queen Elizabeth in their early service years, working both under the White Star Line and later the merged Cunard White Star Line. With the advent of World War II, Nomadic once again found herself in military service. This time she was used by the Royal Navy and operated primarily in and around Southampton and Portsmouth. Though specific wartime records are limited, it's documented that she was employed for troop movements and supply runs. These duties were often carried out under blackout conditions and in mine-infested waters. It's just amazing that she survived. But her small size made her particularly useful in harbours and coastal areas where larger ships couldn't go. By the end of World War II, the SS Nomadic had survived 2 global conflicts, a rare distinction for a vessel built for luxury service. The Nomadic continued her civilian tender role again until 1968, where advances in port infrastructure and the decline of ocean liner travel made her obsolete. She was sold off and began another chapter, this time as a floating restaurant in Paris, moored on the banks of the River Seine. By the early 2000s, Nomadic had fallen into disrepair. Recognising her historical importance, a campaign was launched to return her here to Belfast. In 2006, she was purchased for a symbolic €1 by the Northern Ireland Department for Social Development, and she was brought back to her birthplace in Belfast. Following a restoration project, Nomadic was reopened to the public in 2013 and now is on display at Hamilton Dock beside the Titanic Belfast Museum. For me, it was poignant to stand on the decks of this ship. And it always reminds me that history doesn't have to belong to the grand and the glamorous. Sometimes it lives on in the quiet survivors, like the SS Nomadic. The support ships like this that never sank, they were the vessels that came back. And for that reason, I can stand on the decks today. Standing on that deck, the little girl who's now grown up and had every book about the Titanic. It gave me a time to reflect on a lifetime full of wonder, thinking about the bigger ship that took over so much of my young life, and I think went towards making me the historian I became. If you're still watching, I haven't got much footage from inside the Titanic experience itself. It was incredibly busy, but there were some things I saw that took my breath away, and I have chosen to share them in this video, particularly for a subscriber, Kimberly, who I know loves things Titanic as much as I do. A poignant artefact on display is the corroded Omega pocket watch of Malcolm Joachim Johnson. He was a passenger who perished in the Titanic disaster. The watch was recovered from his body and the watch's hands are frozen at 1:37 a.m, marking the moment he entered the icy Atlantic waters. This watch serves as a reminder of the tragedy of human toll, and it's part of the museum's collection of original artefacts, which also include items like an original deck chair from the Titanic and a life jacket. Most movingly, from somebody who was obsessed with that film, Say No More, there is the violin of Wallace Hartley, the ship's band leader. The violin was returned to his widow when his body was found and was first sold, and then from around 1939 remained in an attic undisturbed until 2004. Scientists have debunked the rumour that this couldn't possibly be the same violin, stating corrosion deposits were considered comparable with immersion in seawater. These were personal, profound and moving things for me to see. As always, thank you for coming with me. I'm sorry this video is short and sweet. I didn't realise it was going to be a whole video. It was just one of those things. But when I came back from Belfast, I was reflecting and thinking, I loved that ship. I need to share that in a standalone video. So here it is, short and sweet. If you love history, if you love social history, please do subscribe. I have just uploaded my 100th video. Who would have thought? I absolutely love doing this and sharing my passion with you. So please subscribe, it's free, and come along for this crazy ride with me. Until next week, I look forward to hearing from you. Write in the comments what you think of the SS Nomadic. As always, until next week, I'll see you then. Goodbye.